Well, it's time now to talk all things birds.
Well, we've been out bird watching the last few days.
Fantastic. Now, I have a question that came from gardening today, Neil.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, it was somebody who wanted to gift a ficus to somebody, and the particular ficus, and I'm not sure if you're at all gardening savvy, but it's a Ficus lyrata, Lyrata, because this may be something you have to investigate. But so this person has birds. We're not sure what sort of birds, like inside birds, and basically if they let them out, are they allergic? Because apparently there's a sap that's poisonous.
Oh, now you're really starting to get outside my real area.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to give any advice about something that might then end up killing someone's pet birds.
Fair enough. The stakes are high, Neil. Yeah.
Yeah, they are high on that, and I don't look. Okay. I know a little bit about gardening, but ficus, this is not even a local plant, so no, I would not hazard a guess on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's okay. But is there a resource that you can recommend if people are a little concerned about what's poisonous to birds? I've put you on the spot here, haven't I?
Yeah, you have put me on the spot here. I'd struggle. I'd have to probably do the things that others would do, just hunt through various journals and references. There's not a place I would immediately recommend. And of course, it's a very specific question about a very specific plant.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, maybe a nursery would know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, perhaps one of the nurseries would be a good place to start, and they may well have the appropriate references to use.
Fair enough. We've got Ron on the line now who wants to talk about birds on the road. Hi there, Ron.
Good morning, all.
Hello.
Neil,
hi, Ron.
A little tip for you. When you're driving along and you see birds on the road, what do you normally do?
I identify them.
Yeah, and then run over them.
No. Look, birds. Yeah. So I'm actually on the road now because we're doing a trip through the Riverina bird watching, and we're seeing lots of birds, and some are on the roads.
What you do is grab hold of your light switch and flick it, and I mean keep flicking.
Yep.
So that your light, your high beam comes on, off, yep. And it gets them all upset and they take off.
And then the oncoming traffic thinks there's a cop down the road then as well.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but it gets the birds off the road. And that's from...
The other piece,
that's from
the other piece of advice the other piece of advice I give people is not to swerve. Because one of the temptations when you have, a bird right in the middle of the road in front of you is to swerve. And of course, if you swerve and you cause yourself an accident, well, that's a terrible thing. But the other thing is almost inevitably the bird will move to another spot anyway. So the thing about birds or any animal on the road is you don't try and avoid them. You just keep driving, slowing down, sure, and flicking the lights. That's a great idea, but it's very unwise to do anything like swerving, which can cause an accident and then sometimes kill the animal or bird anyway.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing the flicking the lights for years now. And it just works. It works every time.
Wonderful idea. I'll try it today. I'm driving back to Canberra today.
Thanks, Ron.
But don't do it just once or twice. You might have to keep doing, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times, but keep going and then they'll take off.
Thanks very much for the advice.
Thanks, Ron.
I'll give it a try.
Rightio, bye-bye.
Thank you so much. And speaking of journeys, Neil, I understand the sharp-tailed sandpiper flies nearly 10,000 kilometres from Russia to outback Australia for its summer holidays.
Look, these migratory... We spoke last week about some of these migratory events. I mean, we've just had a historic one of 13,000 kilometres of bird this season. These are amazing flights, extraordinary. Imagine these birds... they're less than a few hundred grams in weight, and they're taking off from places like Northern Korea, Siberia, Manchuria, or Alaska, and they're arriving in places like Central Australia. The sharp-tailed sandpiper will come back to the same spot. We have sandpipers that come back to parts of down near Isabella Plains to a part of the lake down there every year to the same little stretch of waterway, having travelled 10,000 kilometres. These flights are just extraordinary. The fact that these birds can find their way. The one we talked about last week, the bar-tailed godwit, That bird was only 5 months old when it did a flight of 13,000 kilometres or more. Amazing flight.
Oh, my goodness. That's incredible.
Just extraordinary. How they do it, we still don't really understand.
Well, obviously, with all the, unrest in Russia at the moment, you want to get out of there. So,
well, that's true. But they've been doing it ever since, before there were countries. These birds were doing it. So what they're doing, of course, is they're feeding up when the Arctic conditions and the northern parts of Asia have huge amounts of food during their summer, and then when it gets iced over and it's cold and there's no food left, they then come to the southern hemisphere where we have plenty of food in our summer. So they've always got summer. They're always in a high food place, but they have to go through this enormous ordeal to travel from one location back to the other every year. And imagine a young bird, it's just starting to fly. It's a week old, or it's been flying for a week, and then it's taking off to do that flight. Extraordinary.
It is amazing. How do they have the sat nav, the GPS? How do they know? How do they know where to go?
Yeah. How do they sleep when they're flying? All that stuff.
It's amazing.
Some of these flights take many, many days to do. So yeah, the little sharp-tailed sandpiper that turns up in inland Australia, or the one that has turned up every year for the last 4 or 5 years there at Isabella Plains. It comes from somewhere in Russia every year to that little spot along the edge of the Isabella Ponds there. Amazing.
That is amazing. Now, not so good news. A bird flu outbreak in the UK has prompted poultry to be kept indoors until further notice. Is it something that we should be worried about here as well?
Yes, look, yes, we should be worried about it, and bird flu is a serious issue. Fortunately, in Australia, we have some protections which the rest of the world doesn't have, which is lucky for us. Bird flu is just another influenza. We all know about flus these days and how you can have massive outbreaks of flu. Bird flus come in all sorts of varieties. When they get into a population of birds, they can kill thousands of birds. Last year in Victoria, we had a big outbreak, and we had to destroy tens of thousands of birds, including an emu farm. So it is serious when it gets into the bird population, but also it's one of these viruses that can cross over to humans. So humans can get bird flu if they're in close proximity with their birds. And in fact, there's been a case just in China where there's been a crossover from birds into humans again. The thing that we're fortunate about in Australia is that they tend to get spread in Asia by waterfowl. And what I mean by waterfowl is ducks and geese and swans. Now, we don't have any migratory swans from Asia into Australia. So we don't actually have the natural spread of birds into Australia that could bring in bird flu. They tend to go from Asia across to Europe every year, which is why right now they're having a big outbreak in Europe, because these birds are arriving, having migrated into Europe. So we're fortunate in that the birds that do the spreading of it are not commonly seen in Australia. We do have very strong border protection, which means it can't come in through domestic birds. But it is a serious threat. It's a very big threat in Europe at the moment, and can impact on keeping any birds outdoors, including free-range chickens, that sort of stuff, and can have a big impact on that industry in Europe. But look, it's something for us to watch, something for us to be concerned about, but fortunately we're in a relatively good position with bird flu.
Now, finally, we've got a bird now nicknamed the devil bird because the midnight cooee calls of the Koel, is that how I say it, or Koel?
The Koel, yeah.
The Koel, that it's driving Aussies insane. Is this what I'm hearing in the middle of the night too, Neil? Or?
It is what you're hearing, but devil bird, really, I mean, it's... Look, we didn't have... So Koel is a type of cuckoo. They're very common. They migrate from Papua New Guinea and northern Australia to southern parts of Australia every year. They used to only come as far as about Sydney. A couple of decades or so ago, they started coming further down the coast, and we've first started seeing them in Canberra about 10 years ago. When I was a young kid in Canberra, we didn't get any Koels in Canberra, and that was why many people would perhaps say, look, I'm not sure, I've seen these birds before. And they're right. They haven't been in Canberra before. But they, as a cuckoo, they're calling all the time to try and attract a mate. And what this particular species of cuckoo does is it has a very loud call that it does all through the night. Now, if you happen to have one at your bedroom window and it's calling all through the night, of course it can be a bit disturbing. But you know what? We should just get used to the fact that birds call, and it's part of the natural cycle. And I think this name, devil bird, I mean, really, apparently this year they were a little bit late on the migration, so they're a couple of weeks later than we would.
Well, it's dangerous for a breakfast radio host because I only have to get up that early once a week, and so I hear it and I think, oh, it's 5 a.m. already, and it's like 2 a.m.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. So look, but it should be part of our rich tapestry of experiences of the wild around it. We should be thankful that Canberra has the opportunity to have lots of wonderful birds, including Koels, living in our gardens and embrace them. There's other birds call at night. Magpies call at night. Kookaburras call at night. Other blackbirds call at night a lot too. But they are a bit haunting. They can be a bit annoying. I do agree. But let's try and live with them. Please.
I wouldn't think that you'd have a bad word to say about any bird, Neil. So I'd be surprised.
I don't let people use expressions like stoning the birds and any of that sort of stuff.
Killing two birds with one stone. Yep. No,
that doesn't happen in my life.
That's sacrilegious to Neil. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll keep that in mind if we're ever hanging out. Now, you're on a bird watching tour at the moment. What have you seen?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to see?
Look, I have had one of the days of my life yesterday. I saw a new species of bird in Australia. I was with a group and we saw some plains wanderers last night, which are an extraordinary, unique Australian species of small ground bird. We were just north of Deniliquin. We went out with one of the local experts here, Phil Maher, and we've had a wonderful time. We've seen 150 species of birds on the trip in the last few days.
Oh my goodness.
We've had a ball. It's been fabulous. But if people want to see about other things that I do on a program for next year, check it all out on neilhermes.com and on my website, and perhaps come out on one of my local bird walks or check out things on my Facebook page.
Make sure you don't use outdated bird phrases as well.
No,
to offend Neil.
Not.
Yeah.
All good.
Neil,
Thanks,
always
Tatiana.
a pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
I shall. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much. That's Neil Hermes, our resident ornithologist who joins us at this time.